Buzz Aldrin's famous photograph, the famous photograph. I'm just going to pull this up here. I'd forgotten all about this for a long time.
5903 is the famous one, Man on the Moon. It's quite early on in the sequence.
We were looking at the shadow lengths, and then we came up to here, and of course the reflection, this is his arm here. This is his shadow coming back, and that all lines up nicely for there. And then we come in and we go, how the hell did this happen? This is the leg. This is the shadow of the leg. It goes all the way up through to there. That's the secondary strut. That's the strut. That's the in there. He's standing right on the shadow. That shadow should go right up his body. It goes straight through him. So this image has been inserted.
Yeah, you're right.
He's actually standing to the far side of that shadow. I don't care how you do that. That shadow continues on through there. It would have to run up the front of it.
Yes, it would. Of course it would.
That's just one little tiny thing, which means everything that's in here has been reworked. Some of it could be the same, just the natural shadow here, whatever, that's fine, and the shadow there. That's dropped in.
Yeah.
And what that tells me is they could have had a professional photographer taking the picture. Don't forget how beautiful these photographs are. This is one of the most famous photographs of all of them. And if you had a professional photographer taking this picture, and it's supposed to be an astronaut, that's why that can be dropped in like that. That may be the only thing that they have dropped into there.
If you enlarge that again, Scott, there's something else on there. Right at the top of the helmet, there, that little spot. Now that is supposed to be Earth. That's what people were saying. And if you enlarge it, you'll see some of it is blue. So it appears to have Earth in the picture, which is a bit odd when you think about it, because Earth shouldn't be in that position.
No, it can't be in that position. That's what I was just sitting there thinking. How can it be in that position? The flag is sitting there, and then they take the other photograph of the flag,
and it's
where
not
it's shooting up. It would be that way.
Yes, it will.
I just keep looking at how they managed to line the ground up right at this level.
It's clever, that, isn't it?
That's having some artistic license to be able to do that.
Yes. Yeah. And also, given the fact that the lens used on the camera was an 80mm Biogon lens, why is so much of the background out of focus? On the previous picture, on the Man on the Moon picture, the background is out of focus.
That's in Apollo 17, though. There are no other shots in here of the Earth.
Towards the end of the sequence, there are two pictures, which is basically of the back of the lander, and above the lander is supposed to be Earth. It's one I use in my presentation, show how ridiculous it is, because nobody knows who took the picture.
They got it really wrong there. The sun is up here, right? Coming down. Shadow is straight across. The light hitting this is only maybe a couple of degrees above being level with it.
Yeah, it is.
You see that? There, you take a look at that and the light to there. That lighting, it might be about maybe this height and straight back from it. It's only slightly above the height of that. And there's the direction it's supposed to be coming down at.
Straight down.
That's an incredible display of lighting anomaly right there. The lighting is lower than the top of this vehicle. I would say it's right in around this level right here.
Yeah, it's about 13 degrees.
And straight back from it. Take a look at that. You could probably calculate that for level. It's just only slightly, runs just slightly. It's almost even here.
Yeah, it's like the sun is directly overhead at that point.
Or directly sideways to it. That lighting isn't any higher than the strut right here.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, when you look at this one, it's just about the same height as this and straight behind the camera. It's not this at all.
No, because that indicates that the sun is directly overhead.
Well, this edge here is that right there. That's almost dead even across, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It cannot be higher than this edge right here, the actual lighting. And that's why you're getting the reflection down here, because that tapers back on an angle and it's picking up the light because it's coming from a lower angle.
It is.
how unbelievably wrong. We're looking for this and then this shows up.
Yep. That's good. Well spotted.
But you see, even down here, there's the shadow of this. If that was directly overhead, as this shows, you wouldn't see a shadow there. It would be down on the ground. Unreal. By the way, there's multiple lighting here. Look at this shadow here. So that's that. The light is coming in over this way to make that shadow that direction. The light's coming in here, making that shadow that direction. Now it's going the opposite direction there. If that's the light coming down from there, we'll go to this one right here. It's coming from off to the side there.
Yeah.
Not the same direction. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. Completely unbelievable.
Look at this lighting here, coming off of that.
Where's the 13 degrees angle that it was supposed to land at? Or even 15 degrees? They're completely different. Much longer shadows. That was probably taken at Cannon Air Force Base, and they didn't get it right.
Yeah, but this is unbelievable because that's just straight back.
Yeah, it is. It is.
This wouldn't put a shadow back there if the sunlight's coming down here, hitting the top of that. And if it's hitting the top of that, you're looking at the sun angle off of this would make it that, what, 85 degrees?
Yeah, it's almost directly overhead at that point.
Almost directly overhead.
Yeah.
And this is straight sideways.
Shouldn't be. It should be different.
From there to there, that means that the sun would be at the horizon.
That's right. Another anomaly.
So we've got 80-degree variance in light with shadows to the Earth.
And they thought we wouldn't spot it.
80-degree offset. And then we come back to these. And that's at least 45 degrees, right? From there to there?
Yeah, about that.
About 45 degrees, and it was only 14 or 15 degrees.
That's correct. Yep. 14 degrees.
This is just slightly longer than the height of it.
Yeah, at 45 degrees.
Yeah, I think we worked it out between 38 and 40, something like that.
That's right, yeah. It's a matter of knowing what to look for. And
I always like this one because the shadow just comes right out to the edge of the set. Apollo 11, the entire distance, basically you could put it into a half of a football field. That's what they had to work with. This particular thing could have been done inside a studio. It could have been done at Flagstaff underneath a gantry crane, and they just put a black sheet up.
Or it's done at Cannon Air Force Base inside one of those hangars.
I always think it's easier when you already have all the equipment at Flagstaff, the crew that practiced everything there. You know, a 300 by 600 foot long gantry crane. They only need half of what's underneath that to shoot this. For their whole scenery, everything else, just put a black curtain up. But I like that, right to the edge of the set.
Yeah, it's good that. Well, they couldn't have it going beyond that because it would show up on the background.
Here in this shot here again, there's the angle all the way back. Now, that's almost the 14 or 15 degrees that it should be. They've changed the angle again because you can see this coming down from there. It's not shooting in from the other angle. They've moved the lighting one more time again. They got about the 15-degree angles pretty much on there for this particular shot, except the length of the shadow isn't matched. So again, they're using multiple lighting.
What was the calculation we did to show the length of the lander?
The shadow length would be just over 100 feet.
Okay, that's not 100 feet long, that shadow.
No. When you come back to this, that's even. Think that's 15 degrees from there down?
No, I'm not sure about that. I think it'd be very different. A 15-degree sun angle produces very long shadows, which doesn't appear in this.
Yeah, well, when it's picking up from there and it's shooting this way, the lighting's over that direction. When you pick this one up and shoot to there, the lighting's over the other way to go from there to there. This one's going this way to this way. Additional lighting hitting here. Very direct spotlight. Completely out of whack with that. Not even close.
Not even close, no.
And then we go back to these ground photos where you're back at 45 down here. They must have mixed because these are all on magazine 40. They've been taken over different times, different setups during the course of practice. And they've mixed all the photographs together and stuck them on and called them all magazine 40. Here's another thing I want to point out. Now, I don't know, these guys couldn't reach anything above their head. When you look at the press kit, There's the door opened on that side. There's the door on that side. This is folded up. Like it's up here on this with this little jog sticking out underneath the doors and stuff.
Okay.
And it's all taped up. It's all closed up again.
Oh dear. I wonder why that is. Because you don't want to see inside it, or they didn't need to see inside it.
The tethers are hanging down. See the
Yep.
tethers hanging down? That tape I was showing you here
Yep.
is not there anymore. This kind of comes down in a curve. These are all closed up again. Tethers are hanging down. Why would they bother to close the doors? They're not using it for anything. This up here is different because this piece that sticks out isn't there.
No, you're right.
You see that?
Yeah.
That tape isn't there. None of this line is here. None of that line is there. And don't forget, these guys can't reach that.
No, they can't. Can't get their hands high enough.
I mean, there's the top of the door. There's the top of the door there. All of this is different. Every bit of it's different. And it's all closed up again. But the tethers are still hanging down. There's the tether hanging off the strut. It's sitting there. This other one's still down here coming off, or the one that's down here in front of them is that one there. So all of that stuff is there. There's the one, the little tiny one with the wire is right there. It's there, that's there, that's there. All of this is different in here. 100% different. First, it's got a curve to it. The curve is actually there. That piece of equipment that sticks out, whatever they had to wrap around it, it's not even there. They can't move it. It's taped in up this part here, and it's nowhere.
Yeah, because if you look at the top picture where you got the exhaust deflector, you can relate one picture to the other from that exhaust deflector.
Mm-hmm.
And you're quite right. It's completely different.
This looks all the same. There's your struts coming across. This looks the same. This isn't touched. Well, that's that dark piece there, which is that piece there. This is missing. It's not there. This lighter color foil, completely gone. It goes up to the side of the strut there, and this is dark. This has got lighter foil on it. Like you can see, they're using two different kinds, or three actually. They got silver and whatever. But this piece is completely missing out of there as well. This is totally different between the two.
Yeah. Now, which quadrant is that?
It's right underneath on the backside when you're counting around.
So it'll be quadrant 2.
Yeah. It doesn't have any of this gold foil here. It's got gold foil over there, but that's completely changed. And you can't change that. They can't reach it. How many days do you think they'd be working to do this film work? In practice, they would have done it at least a couple of dozen times.
It was 3 days that they were practicing at Cannon Air Force Base, 1st of June to the 3rd of June. So they had 3 days to get it right, and they failed.
Yeah, but even at Flagstaff in their schedule there, they had at least 2 days of full dress rehearsal.
Yeah, it would take at least that.
But they had many times where they weren't dressed to do this and practice it. But there's multiple days when they had full dress rehearsal. I know they could have practiced a lot at any of the other bases, but on the final version, I think everything was done at Flagstaff.
Yeah, could be. Could well be.
And even in the Finney file, it states their rehearsal on it, but you can take their training schedule as well. If you take their F-38 flight schedule as well, puts them at Flagstaff. But yeah, you got differences in lighting yet, difference in the way they laid this thing out. Could have been 2 fully separate days, and it doesn't matter about the lighting because it's all artificial. If you look down at the lower leg, the drogue sensor for the landing, to sense when they were touching the ground, you can see it here in this photograph where it's tilted way off on about a 45-degree angle. Between this and this, the ground is completely reset. It's been re-raked over. It's been beautifully smooth. Nothing here, and this is propped up now vertical. It even appears that the position of their garbage bag has been moved.
Yeah, it has.
In this photograph, it should be over here, and you see it back there. And in no other photographs do you see it's been moved. This has been completely reworked.
Yes, look at how smooth it is.
Now, I'm going to go back to a previous photograph when Buzz is coming down the ladder. There's the position. All of these are off to the angle here. You can see that. That's the line where the drogue connects in. There's a better photograph of that right there. Now we can see the lines. We want to look right down this line here.
What the heck? Now the drogue is on an angle again.
Yeah, well, this is prior. They've redressed the set when they come down to this other one. It could be leaning back a little bit in that, but if you see where the bag is and stuff, and then we go to the next photograph here, and you put those two together, there's this big lump of stuff here. There's all of this stuff. None of that is apparent in here.
Nope.
That's where the secondary strut kicks out.
What is all of that? It looks like there's a circle in the middle there. You see how it's different? The soil's different. It almost looks like they haven't raked it yet. But when you look at the one where the drogue is now standing straight up, it looks like it's been raked smooth even under the lem.
Yeah. Well, if you take a look at this picture, the ladder is over here. For them to come out and take this picture, where are the footprints?
Oh, look at that.
There are no footprints here of any kind, is there?
No, and yet the bag's out there, so there has to be.
And there he is right there. He's been walking around.
Okay, there's footprints on the right side, but there's nothing on the left.
Neil was out this side taking the picture. There he is right out that side of that leg taking that picture.
Yeah.
And that's in the video. He's out this side taking the picture.
Where's the footprints? See, I think they've been raked.
Well, how did he get the bag there without footprints? He is standing right out that side right there to take the picture. It's in the video. He's on that side. And you can see him in the video. He actually walks all the way around to here and back again in the video while Buzz is coming down. But the set is beautifully redressed. This is where Neil was taking. You see him in the video. He walks all the way around to here and back again when Buzz is coming down. That's one we shot that said he's over here when he was supposed to be taking photographs of him coming down, and he had to be over here to take the pictures, shooting down that way. No footprints of any kind. There's some out here, but he came right around this leg. Not in this. This has all been redressed. But the interesting thing about the precision and the time they took to practice this thing to try get it right, the scripting that was involved. You can't find scripting as far as their practice modes went. We don't see any photographs they've gotten rid of. They would have been taking all kinds of practice photographs. And we talked about that before. Where are the photographs of that?
Yeah, where are they?
And they couldn't have those because they would look exactly like this.
That's the problem.
Except they wouldn't have clothes on, and they might have had, their new Corvette parked there. They probably drove out to the set.
Got to do something to entertain themselves between takes.
And the other one that's in there is when they're picking stuff up and putting stuff back, all the equipment, and it says, don't forget the softball.
No,
I mean, they wouldn't do that if their lives were at stake in such an extreme environment that the slightest little mistake is going to cost your life or both of your lives.
Of course they would.
That wouldn't be happening.
They'd be taking extreme care over everything they did, but they didn't do that.
It would be in the inflection and tone of their voice would be there.
But seeing as it was all scripted well in advance, they're not going to start admitting any of these problems. But now we know it was scripted and storyboarded, and it was all created to produce a film showing men on the moon. That was the purpose. Where it was photographed, where it was filmed, who did the filming, who was inside those suits, really doesn't matter. The whole point was to get a film of man on the moon, especially man on the moon and then back to Earth. That was Kennedy's challenge. Well done, guys, you did it, but you faked it.
Oh, it's complete. When you start to think about the fact that they didn't have anything in their storyboard other than Apollo 13, to cause a real problem, all of this stuff went off without a hitch. We want to land on Apollo 12 beside the surveyor, and we want to land here, you want to land there. It doesn't matter what time they took off at, they managed to get there. And to come off the lunar surface without a hitch. Considering the launch pad is severely damaged in Apollo 15 in particular, right? But the fact that it's not vertical, the immense calculations that would have to be done to reconnect on such limited fuel is just beyond belief. And that's the thing, is that part is beyond belief right there, just that one point.
Well, we sure got these clowns going today, haven't we?
Oh, they keep going. They keep going because they're cult believers.
Well, you have watched the latest one that Robert put up, eh?
No, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I had a look. Yeah, no, it's great. Interesting, there's so much reaction to it.
Oh, it really went off. The comments really went off the wall. It's beautiful.
Yeah, Stray Dog was in there taking out a lot of stuff, right? Because all that guy, that Tecumseh guy, all he was doing was just insulting people with stupid 3-word comments, right? So he just went down the list and just went, goodbye.
Yeah, quite right.
You don't need that. I mean, all they're doing now, they're just harassing the subscribers, right? That you don't need.
You should just take them out.
That's exactly what he did. Yeah, he took them out. Yeah.
Yeah, Stray Dog's good. He makes some very good comments. Must upset a lot of people by his knowledge and ability to get to the heart of the matter.
He's been around since 2006.
Hi there, Stray Dog. Thanks for your help. Yeah, in fact, last week I invited somebody who'd been corresponding with me on email. Sounds quite knowledgeable. And I invited him to appear with us and discuss the various aspects that he knew about. And he said he thanked for the invitation, but he said no, he preferred to keep himself in the background, which is understandable, I suppose. Some quite interesting points he makes about it.
Yeah, well, we were told here under the comments on this one that after 50 years, we've come up with nothing.
Really?
Yeah, somebody claiming they've watched all of our videos,
yeah,
except at the same time, they don't understand any of them. And of course, even referring to the documents that are shown in this video, they go off and find a different document. Say that's not what it says. Well, of course, that document doesn't say anything about what we're talking about.
No, because when you ask them a question, they can't answer you, which means they haven't watched the video, which means they haven't paused the video to read the text that's up on the screen. I used to get accused of that all the time. Oh, you guys never put any of the documents up there. So, of course, then what I did was I went and I started putting the links to the documents there. Just like Scott said, they go to the links and they'll go to another document to try to counter that document. But they'd never read what you put up. So I just said, the heck with it. Forget putting the links up there. If they can't pause the video and read what's there, then that's too bad.
It's probably because they all work at NASA and they don't dare admit that NASA have got it wrong.
Look at Thunderfoot, for example, Phil Mason. You know, he says, how many times have I called out NASA on their bullshit? I wouldn't have expected him to say that.
It's surprising how often NASA do get called out. And unfortunately, quite a lot of their mistakes are visible for everybody to see when their rockets blow up and they don't get to where they say they're going. Or they say they got somewhere and they can't prove it.
What I find amusing is the fact that anytime they launch something, they all jump up and cheer and clap and everything like that, right? I mean, these rockets have been around about the same time planes started flying. And I mean, if you go to an airport, you don't see people clapping every time a plane takes off.
The only time I've actually seen that happen was about 30, 40 years ago at Heathrow when Concorde took off. And that always created an incredible reaction because it was such an amazing plane. And it made a huge noise. I mean, you could hear it inside the terminal, which is soundproofed against plane noise. But Concorde was the only plane whose takeoff noise was audible inside the terminal. But it was exciting watching it. I mean, it's a magnificent plane. There was one which was taken on a barge down the Hudson River in New York. It's going from it being renovated to a museum. It's a bit sad that the only supersonic passenger plane is now in a museum, so we can all go and worship it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great piece of technology.
Well, at least they actually produced one that worked the way they said it did.
Yeah, that's true.
The only thing that is cost prohibitive is the amount of fuel that the damn thing was using. And they still have that problem with commercial aircraft. The actual speed of the commercial aircraft has dropped substantially from what it was in the 70s and 80s. They redesigned the engines and found out that they work much more efficiently. They're called bypass engines, I think. They're fairly efficient around the 500-mile range, but you don't want to go above that. And Most other aircraft in the 70s and 80s were flying closer to 600 miles an hour. They can't design an engine to fly any higher, so you start running out of oxygen. You know, you have to carry that with you if you're going to go higher, right?
By the way, one subscriber was talking about the helium tanks again. That helium tank that was in the LEM in quadrant 1, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know really what he's on about, but he left a message with Raza. Like, in other words, he says, well, where's the proof that that tank was needed in the first place if, in fact, they open up the valve and the vacuum of space draws that fuel out through the lines? Well, if they knew that in the first place, then why would they put it in there in the first place?
Because they didn't know better.
Now, how is it going to suck itself out fast enough to do anything, especially when those other engines needed a massive turbo pump to build that pressure up so that it could escape at that velocity? And now they're saying that you just get rid of the helium tank, which in reality was the fuel pump. So it just kind of doesn't make sense how that fuel could come out fast enough to make any reaction feasible.
That would have been their claim if they needed to put extra pressure behind it to keep a continuous high flow on the engines. And none of the engines that are working in space, that are working with hypergolic fuel, use a pump. You're only using pumps taken off the ground.
You know, like the F1 engines and all those engines, Saturn V engine, they all have a big turbo pump at the top because they have to get the velocity of that fuel going through that screen before they light it, or else it's not going anywhere. I mean, every design of those engines, every engine has a turbo pump at the top of it. Yeah. Now, you get rid of the turbo pump, well, then it's the same thing like getting rid of the fuel pump in your car for a fuel-injected engine. It's not going to do anything.
Then you're going to have to just work off the pressure in the tank.
Yeah, but how do you get the pressure in the tank built up high enough in order to expel that fuel at that pressure required?
Well, that's why they used the helium tank and had the bladder design, because it would maintain a certain amount of pressure.
Yes, but now they got rid of the tank. So what is pushing that fuel out at that high speed for it to work if there's no tank in there? Is this magic?
The vacuum's going to suck it out.
Yeah, but not fast enough. It still doesn't explain really why that tank was taken out of there.
But surely they moved the helium tank to another location.
But I thought there were two tanks, though, weren't there?
There was a small oxygen tank in there, a backup oxygen tank in there, and the helium tank, as well as the batteries for their EVAs.
Right, so did they get rid of the oxygen tank then?
Everything was removed from that to put the rover in there.
But there was two big cylinders that had some fuel in them, though. I think the oxidizer and the fuel were in those two bigger tanks on the opposite quadrants. Because if you look on that guy, the engineering channel, there's still two tanks in there, even though they got rid of the helium and the oxygen tank. You see, that's the problem, is now that those tanks are gone, what's pushing that fuel out? There's no turbo pump to push that fuel out. So they're saying that the vacuum of space did it.
Not only in the documentation, the space available for that helium tank, don't forget it's pressurizing 4 fuel tanks. 2 oxidizers, 2 fuel tanks, pressurizing all 4 of them. That tank wasn't large enough to be able to do that. So then they came out with this supercritical helium that expands more than regular helium does, but it was only available during the Apollo missions, and now supercritical helium has disappeared from the market. I mean, they put, it's like the NASA sticker went on and called it super helium.
Here's the question, though, I think that he put. It was, okay, so that's fine and dandy. Apollo 11, Apollo 12, Apollo 13, 14. And then you have 15, 16, 17. Well, that they didn't have one. So after Apollo 11, Apollo 12. Oh, wait a minute. We really don't need that because the fuel's coming out by itself in the vacuum of space. So why did they keep producing it? Why did they keep making the tanks? That's my point. You think that even after Apollo 11, they would have realized that, hey, we don't need this anymore, and just get rid of it. Forget the rover. Don't even think about putting a rover or anything there. Just the fact that you could save a lot of money right there, just getting rid of 2 tanks.
Yeah, but when you're just faking it, you're never going to be aware of these things. Aware of these things. Aware of these things. Aware of these things.